Welcome to Michael Potts F1, everything Formula One, but from a photographer's point of view. Race 14, the Dutch Grand Prix. The Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort has delivered an absolutely exceptional race, a complete classic. This is probably the best race of the year so far. Although the record books will say that Max Verstappen won from pole position, there was a lot more going on in the race than that. In this video, I'd like to discuss 5 interesting points from the race weekend, and along the way, show you some of my favourite photographs. So let's go and see what happened at the Dutch Grand Prix. Starting off with Daniel Ricciardo breaking a bone in his hand, which will rule him out for this race, Monza, and possibly Singapore and maybe Japan. During the second practice session, Oscar Piastri went off in turn 3. Daniel Ricciardo was fairly close behind him, and because Oscar's car was blocking the road, Daniel didn't have anywhere to go and drove into the barrier almost in sympathy. It looked pretty innocuous when I first saw it on TV. However, the injury does seem to be quite severe, and he is in Barcelona at the moment, having had the brake operated on. But it's desperately sad for Daniel Ricciardo. He looked really happy to be back in the paddock on Thursday and looking forward to doing well in a series of races and hopefully trying to claim a better drive for next season. His seat was taken by New Zealander Liam Lawson, who did a pretty good job jumping into the car on Saturday, having never driven this AlphaTauri. He managed to bring the car home in 13th place in the race, which is a pretty big achievement considering how chaotic the conditions were out there. So not only does Daniel miss out on 2 races, potentially more, one of his rivals for that seat gets to show what he can do in the same car. Liam Lawson is 21 years old. He was born in Hastings in New Zealand. He is a member of the Red Bull Young Drivers program, and he's currently the Red Bull reserve driver. He is racing in Japanese Super Formula, and he currently lies second in that championship, 8 points behind the leader. There are 2 races left to run in this championship, which finishes on the 29th of October. AlphaTauri haven't announced who's going to be driving for them next year, and it looks like there's 3 drivers who are in contention. Yuki Tsunoda, who's doing really well this year, Daniel Ricciardo, and Liam Lawson. Let's see who's going to use the remaining races of the season to take their opportunities and stake a claim for a seat in 2024. Point 4. The surprise rise of Williams. To be honest, I did not expect Williams to feature at all in this race. What we've seen so far this year of the car's characteristics means that it's very good in straight lines and pretty awful in circuits that require a lot of downforce. Zandvoort is a track that needs an awful lot of downforce. Somehow, Williams managed to get both cars into Q3. That was the first time since Monza 2017. I was at that race and it was also atrociously wet. Lance Stroll was driving for Williams at the time and got a surprise front row start, mainly because lots of the drivers took grid penalties, so he was bumped up the order. It was great seeing Williams do so well, and it was really good seeing a team being able to surprise everyone like this. Their performances during the weekend were so strong, they probably left the Netherlands feeling disappointed only to get 1/8th place. Alex was on the cusp of a top 3 qualifying position, and his race pace was really strong. However, I think if you'd offered them 8th place before the race weekend started, they would have bitten your arm off for that. These are really good results coming out of Williams, and going into Monza, a race weekend which they should on paper be incredibly strong at. Everything is very encouraging. Logan will be disappointed having crashed twice. It sounds like something broke on the car on both occasions. At least one of the crashes was caused by a hydraulic failure. Getting into Q3 for the first time was a huge accomplishment for Logan, and it's come at a really critical time as he negotiates a contract for next year. Point 3. Pierre Gasly gets his first podium for Alpine. He did take 3rd place in the Belgium sprint race, but that doesn't really count as a proper podium. Alpine have been through massive management changes over the past few weeks, with lots of key people either being fired or resigning, so this result must have come as a real boost for the team. It was a remarkable drive from Pierre, who only managed to qualify in 12th place. Through great strategy and brilliant driving, he managed to bring the car home and get his first podium for the team. It was particularly good because the team did look off the pace for most of the practice and qualifying sessions. Ocon managed to bring his car home in 10th place, giving the team a double points finish. An interesting fact I was told by one of the Alpine engineers, that their car has at least 7 kilometers of electrical cable inside the racing car. It just goes to show how complex these machines are. Alonso back on the podium. This is the first time Alpine have got a podium since Canada. The team brought a whole host of upgrades to this race, and it looks like they've really paid off, at least for one of the cars. While Alonso used all his skill, his experience, his mastery of difficult conditions to bring the car home with a brilliant result, Lance unfortunately could only manage P11. There was some mitigating circumstances. He wasn't very well at the start of the race weekend. He arrived at the paddock with a huge plaster on the side of his neck, but results like this don't help him in his inter-team battle with his much more experienced teammate. Alonso started the race in 5th place, and yes, he did benefit by the bad luck and possibly bad judgment of some of those who started ahead of him. And possibly you could be a bit critical for him not pushing things as hard as he could have at the restart. But it now appears that Aston is back in the mix for best of the rest. And this battle is truly exciting because we had Lando Norris in a McLaren qualifying 2nd, George Russell in a Mercedes in 3rd, Ferrari and Mercedes appeared to be able to put it together occasionally, Pierre Gasly pulled off a brilliant result for Alpine, and Alex Albon's bringing Williams into the mix. It's getting really exciting in the midfield, and there's so much to play for going into Monza. Is Max Verstappen equaling Sebastian Vettel's 9 race wins in a row? It was another absolute masterclass from the Dutchman at his home race. He probably had to work a lot harder for this one than he was expecting. There was a point where Perez was miles ahead of the field on lap 4 or 5, and it was the first time in the past 7 races I thought, well, maybe Max won't win this one. In next to no time, he'd closed that gap down and overtaken the Mexican. He was so fast and so dominant, and where all the other drivers run into issues that sort of derail their races, Max either doesn't seem to have those problems. He just seems to avoid all of the potential pitfalls. And when something bad does happen, he recovers from it so well and so efficiently that it barely touches him. Week after week, he's delivering this masterclass of how to run a near-perfect race weekend. As he said in the press conference, even if a driver has the fastest car, it's so complex to put everything together on a race weekend. To be able to win consistently is nearly impossible. So we are witnessing something extraordinary. I was next to his family during the celebrations, and I don't think he was expecting to see his grandmother there. He was so excited to see her. She was there with his mother and sister, and of course Kelly. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of Dutch supporters that were filling the racetrack and who turned the sand dunes orange. The crowds are brilliant. They really make this a motorsport carnival. We also had the Dutch King and Queen congratulating Max on his brilliant result. It was really great to see them supporting one of their local heroes. What better way to celebrate Carnival, especially when your driver is on top of the world? Thank you so much for watching this race review with me. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If this has inspired you to go to next year's race, tickets go on sale in September. And if you'd like to watch a video about photography in Amsterdam, have a look at this one that I made earlier. This is on a completely separate channel dedicated to non-motor racing photography. Now it's off to Milan to see what Ferrari can do at their home race. Until the next one, goodbye.